Hello everyone, thanks for the introductions. So today I'm going to talk about the study we led which compares the mental effort in virtual versus in real environments. So I guess most of you, if not all of you, already wore a VR headset in the past. So I guess you're all familiar with the feeling of being immersed in a virtual environment. So when you put an HMD, sometimes you can feel a little bit strange, sometimes you can feel a little bit disoriented, sometimes you can feel a little bit sick, or very sick actually. So the situation is not completely natural, and you may wonder, what is the effect of wearing an HMD on your brain, on your cognitive states? So in particular, what is the effect of wearing an HMD on your cognitive effort? So this is our research question today. So does being immersed in a virtual environment using an HMD increase your mental effort? So there have been some studies which stated that full immersive VR system could influence the cognitive effort. So the first study here stated that they didn't want to use actually a full immersive VR system in this specific study because it could influence the cognitive effort. The second study stated in their discussion that maybe one of their reasons may be due actually to the use of a VR HMD. There have been some studies which found an effect of VR paradigms on the cognitive demand. So the first study here found an effect of redirected walking on the user's performance during a working memory task. And the second study here found an effect, actually, of the control of a self-avatar on the user's performance during a letter recall task. So to summarize a little bit what has been done in the literature, there have been some studies which stated that maybe there could be an influence of VR HMD or caves on the user's cognitive effort, and there have been some studies which found actually an effect of VR paradigms on the user's cognitive effort. But for now, there have been no studies which compared side to side the effect of wearing a VR HMD on the cognitive effort in virtual versus in real environments. So in this experiment, we conducted a study on 27 participants, and our objective was to study the difference of mental effort in virtual versus in real environments. For this, we decided to use a cognitive task to induce actually 3 levels of mental effort, and we manipulated 2 conditions. The environment, which was either virtual using a VR HMD, or the real world. We also manipulated the absence or the presence of a secondary task, so the user was either sitting or walking. So I'm going to explain a little bit the cognitive task. So we decided to use the standardized cognitive task, the N-back task, and we used 3 difficulty levels: the 1-back task, the 2-back task, and the 3-back task. The 1-back task is the easiest one, and the 3-back task is the most difficult one. So the user wore an audio headset, and he could hear sequences of letters. He was asked to press the button if and only if the letter he heard was the same as the nth previous one. So we used the Vive headset and the Vive controller, so he was asked to press the trigger button during the experiment. So I'm going to give some example. For the 1-back task, the user had to compare the letter he heard to the one he heard just before. So if he heard A, C, C, he had to press the button. C, he had to press the button again. For the 2-back task, he had to compare the letter he heard to the one he heard 2 times before. So A, B, A, he had to press the button. C, A, he had to press the button again. For the 3-back task, I think you understood the process. So B, A, B, he had to press the button. So we crossed the conditions, so the secondary task condition and the environments. So we had 4 conditions. Sitting in the real world. So in these conditions, the user was seated in front of a TV, and he could see the difficulty of the task on the TV. So in the virtual environment condition, where he was sitting, it was exactly the same task. So the virtual environment was the same as the real one. Everything was modeled in 3D. So he could see the difficulty of the task on the virtual TV here. For the walking conditions, the user was asked to walk in circle around the cross in the middle of the room. So the user could walk at the pace he or she wanted, and he or she could stop or accelerate as he or she wanted. So we decided to use a very natural task, actually. In the virtual environment conditions, since all virtual objects were mapped and calibrated correspondingly to the real ones, what the user could see in the virtual environments corresponded to what he could see in the real environments. So we decided to create 4 different types of data. So we decided to assess the subjective mental effort via the rating scale of mental effort, which is a unidimensional scale going from 0 to 150, so going from absolutely no effort to beyond the extreme effort. We also recorded the accuracy, which is the performance data. So it is a ratio of good responses divided by the total number of responses. Since I totally agree with the previous study, I decided also to collect some behavioral data. So we decided to record the pressure exerted on the button via a force-sensitive resistance sensor. And everything was DIY. There's more data in the paper, so you can find way more measures we did. And we also recorded the response time, which is the time it took actually to click for the user after he heard the letter. We also recorded some physiological measures, so the heart rate and the skin conductance level, which are a lot used in the literature to assess affective and cognitive data. So I'm going to switch to the results, but before this, I'm going to summarize a little bit the experiment. So we manipulated 3 different types of variables: the difficulty of the cognitive task, the environment, and the absence or the presence of a secondary task. So sitting versus walking here. So on the top, you can see a picture of the real environments, and below you can find a screenshot of the virtual one, which was modelized. So our first hypothesis was the following. Users will experience more mental effort in the virtual environments compared to in the real world. The second hypothesis is the following. So users will experience more mental effort while walking than while sitting. So this is our results. On the left, you can see the mental effort. In the middle, you can see the performance. And on the right, you can see the behavioral measures, one behavioral measure, which is the response time. So here you can see the result in the real environments, considering the sitting and the walking conditions. So here you have the 1 back task, the 2 back task, and the 3 back task. As you can see, the difficulty of the n back task had a significant effect on the 3 types of measures. So since it is a standardized task, it was able to induce actually 3 different levels of mental effort considering our measures. So here we have the result in the real environments, but we want to compare them to the virtual world to see if our first hypothesis is validated or not. So this is the result in the virtual world, and as you can see, we didn't find any significant effect of the environment on these 3 types of measures. So the first hypothesis was not validated. For the walking conditions, here you can see the mental effort considering the sitting conditions, so in the real world and in considering also the virtual environments. So this is the result for the walking condition, and as you can see, walking significantly increased the mental effort. So the second hypothesis was validated. So how can we explain the results we got? So maybe we didn't find any effect of the VR HMD on the mental effort because of the sensory modality of the cognitive task. So we decided to rely on an audio n-back task, but maybe relying on a visual n-back task would have resulted in different outcomes, actually. And maybe we could have different results using different other type of tasks, such as more spatial tasks or maybe more physical tasks. Also, we found that walking increased the mental effort. So maybe even tasks that we are doing on a daily basis, very natural tasks, have an effect on the mental effort. But we have to underline that maybe the walking trajectory, which was in circle, may have influenced the results. So I'm going to go quickly through the lessons learned. And so what did we find is that the rating scale of mental effort we used and the response time were very good indicators of the mental effort, since we managed to get 3 distinct responses using a standardized cognitive task. Also, we found, which is more interesting, that the pressure exerted on the button was more effective than the heart rate, which is a lot more used in the literature to support measures of the mental effort. So we had good results using the pressure exerted on the button. And we found that walking impaired all physiological measures, maybe because of the physical activity, which maybe absorbed the effect of other objective measures. So you can find also more details in the paper here. So in conclusion, we did an experiment to study the difference of mental effort in virtual versus in real environments. And for this, we manipulated two conditions, so the environment and the sitting and walking conditions on 27 participants. So here is our takeaway messages. So we didn't find in this experiment any effect of being immersed in a virtual environment using a VR HMD compared to in the real world. And we found that walking significantly increased the mental effort in this experiment. So here we decided to see if yes or no, being immersed in a virtual environment while using a VR HMD increased yes or no the mental effort. But it could be very interesting to tweak a little bit the experiment and maybe to study the effect of other factors, such as the degree of immersion, the type of VR device, so non-immersive, cave systems, and VR HMD, for example, the screen resolution or the scene realism on the mental effort. But it could also be very interesting to study the effect of other tasks, such as more visual tasks or maybe physical tasks on the mental effort in virtual and in real environments. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me.
Hi, Aitor Rovira from the University of Oxford. I see that you had two experimental variables, and my question is, did you test if there were any interaction between them?
Yes, I tested the interactions, and considering the effect of the virtual environments, only the working and sitting condition, we didn't find interaction effect here.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Hi, Rick Scarbus from La Trobe University. Thank you for your talk. On the sort of future work, you suggest looking at other relationships between different parameters of the virtual reality and mental effort.
Yes.
I just would wonder, do you have reason to expect to see that there would be any difference on any of those factors, on level of immersion or field of view, for example? Do you expect that that would impact mental effort?
So yes, we could expect some effects. So I didn't try it, so I can't really say for sure that there will be an effect. But here we really tested two environments, real and virtual. But maybe if we really degrade, for example, the realism of scenes, the user will have more difficulties to see what's happening in the scenes, and it could be distracted. So we could expect that, yes, there will be an effect on the mental effort, for example, of the scene realism.